Now, your Jeep Sports Desk.
Well, it happens to every team in the NFL. At some point, the dream of making the playoffs evaporate. And for the Jets this year, it happened with 5 games left to go in the season. So where does this team go from here? Let's bring in Jets beat writer with the Star-Ledger and NJ.com, Darryl Slater, joining us. Thanks for being in, man.
Thanks for having me.
Well, it's kind of been an up and down season for the Jets. A lot more down, I think, than up. But let's open things up with that up-down. The injury report: Brandon Marshall, Nick Mangold are up. Steve McClendon and Calvin Pryor are down. That's 2 up on offense, losing 2 guys on defense. What's the cost-benefit analysis here? I know none of these have nothing to do with one another, but what's the cost-benefit analysis to this?
Well, I think obviously it's a plus on the offensive side. I mean, you can do without Steve McClendon. You can play Leonard Williams on the inside. The Jets can at nose tackle. They can play Deion Simon there, a guy who's shown some potential, a young guy. Rontez Miles will take over for Calvin Pryor in the secondary at strong safety, so a little bit of a downgrade there. But look, if you lose Brandon Marshall and didn't have Nick Mangold again, that's a loss. And so Nick Mangold's coming back. He's obviously more experienced than Wesley Johnson, the guy who was playing there. So that's an upgrade for the Jets offense. So I would say a plus overall.
Well, without a doubt, that's been a plus. What's been a minus this year, amazingly, is Darryl Revis. Now, we know that this is something that's going to get handled in the offseason, but at this point now, we have to kind of start to look to the offseason and next year. Next year, he's due $15.3 million. It's clear he's not the same guy. I don't know if it's an injury. I don't know if it's because he's lost a step, but he is not the same guy that he once was. So now the Jets have a couple options. They can cut him, or they can try to reestablish him as a safety and re-sign him at a different number here. First off, how difficult is it for a corner to make that jump to safety? Because it's happened a couple of times.
Yeah, Charles Woodson, Rod Woodson, those guys have done it. With Revis, the issue potentially is, the physical part of it maybe. At this stage of his career, is he still going to be able to make the open field tackles required of the free safety position? From a cerebral standpoint, talking to guys before the season, when Darryl Revis first brought this up, that he could maybe move to safety in the future, they thought, some of the guys in the defensive backfield did, that he could handle the transition from a mental standpoint and making the calls because he's so smart. But you wonder, he's never done it before, if moving him there at a declining stage of his career is something that will work out.
Well, I mean, he's playing so far off the ball right now, he might as well be a third safety out there. And ultimately, if that change is going to be made, or if you've got to decide whether or not Darryl Revis can be a safety, couldn't that evaluation process start at some point this year?
It probably should. I mean, they should be giving a look to Justin Burris, their rookie cornerback, a guy who they feel can play successful press man coverage but needs to develop a little bit. They should be giving him a look and maybe moving Revis over to safety. That's not going to happen. Todd Bowles is not going to do that. They still like what Marcus Gilchrist gives them at free safety, even though he's not a big playmaker. So the decision the Jets have to make is, do they want to move on from Marcus Gilchrist? They'd save about $4 million if they did that after this season, and then slide Revis there. But if they like Marcus Gilchrist at free safety, that makes Revis, I think, even more expendable.
At 3-8, this is a team that just isn't as good as expected. Are they now the team that is trying to play spoiler? Could the Jets now be the trap team that people are afraid to play?
I think, it's a possibility. You have some teams left in their schedule with a bunch to play for, and the Patriots, obviously, and the Dolphins are still chasing some things. We'll see where the Dolphins are when they come to visit the Jets in a couple weeks here. But certainly, I think the Jets are plenty motivated to continue to play well, and that's because they have so many guys like Darryl Revis, like Brandon Marshall, whose contracts make them expendable after this year. We talked about Revis, and the Jets could save $9 to $10 million by cutting him, depending on what he gets from his next team. Brandon Marshall, due $7.5 million next year. None of it's guaranteed. He's expendable if he doesn't play well, because Quincy Enunwa's been playing well too. Right. So these older guys are motivated, there should, at least you'd think they would be, to continue to want to play hard.
Well, this week it's going to be Andrew Luck, and he was just cleared concussion protocol. He will be playing on Monday Night Football once again. But here's the thing. That offensive line has given up the most pressures in the NFL this year. Andrew Luck, his pass time is 2.7 seconds, which is the highest in the NFL. He holds onto the ball a long time. It seems like there's where the mismatch favors the Jets the most. What they can do in their pass rush versus what the Colts have been allowing or offensively.
And the Jets' pass rush has been a disaster since week one. 7 sacks in week one, just 12 total sacks since then. Muhammad Wilkerson has 1 sack since week one, and that was against the Browns, who have the worst pass protection in the NFL. Yes, he's dealing with the ankle, and that he's questionable with that ankle injury for Monday. So if he plays, but even if he doesn't, the Jets need to get home on defense in terms of getting to Andrew Luck in the pocket, because he's going to hold the ball. He has a shoddy offensive line. They need to put some pressure on Andrew Luck, which was something they were able to do last year in that Monday night game that they won. They forced him into interceptions, and they were able to win that game largely because of that. But look, I mean, there's no doubt about the fact that the Jets' defensive line has underachieved in terms of sack production this year. This is a game they have to produce in.
Well, there's no doubt that Andrew Luck has not been the player that I think that most people expected him to be. They thought that he was going to be up doing what Dak Prescott is doing right now. But if he does get the ball out, see, that's the risk and the reward here. The Jets are going to have to bring an extra man to try to put a little pressure on him. And if he can dump that ball off, you've got big playmakers, T.Y. Hilton, Dante Moncrief. You've got a speedster like Philip Dorsett as well. And that's where the Jets have shown their weakness, is in the secondary and the big plays.
Yeah, and then the ability to kind of tackle in the open field and finish plays. And, obviously Calvin Pryor is not an elite coverage guy, but the guy who's replacing him, Montez Miles, has shown some significant weaknesses in coverage. Darryl Revis obviously has been a disaster at times. The Jets have been better about not allowing big plays lately. But as you said, if Andrew Luck has time, that doesn't bode well for the Jets.
Whose job is on the line right now? Is it Todd Bowles? Is it Chan Gailey? Are there coaching positions that are on the line?
Chan Gailey, I think because of his age, in his mid-60s, the Jets are going to have to reevaluate, and he's going to, I'm sure, reevaluate what he wants to do after this season. The Jets' offense has obviously underachieved, largely because of their quarterback deficiencies this year with Ryan Fitzpatrick. So I think it wouldn't be a surprise if you don't see Chan Gailey back with the Jets next year, whether it's his decision or the Jets. Todd Bowles, I think it would be a mistake to fire him after 2 years. He won 10 games his first year. He was a rookie head coach in 2015. Good organizations don't move on from coaches, don't fire coaches after 2 years. The Browns do that. The good organizations don't do that. So I think it would be a mistake. But look, I mean, Todd Bowles is coaching as if, he wants all of these wins in the latter stages of a 3-8 season.
Well, what is that saying, though? If he's trying to get these wins and they're still not coming, so maybe this team, I guess devil's advocate would say, well, maybe this team isn't rallying around Todd Bowles as much as we expected them to.
I think they are. I think you're talking to guys in the locker room. They were definitive after the Jets almost beat the Patriots last week that they don't think a coaching change would be appropriate. And
don't they always say that,
they
though?
They do. So what do you expect them to say,
okay,
right?
Right.
Yeah, fire the guy.
This is the guy that has the keys to their job as well.
Right, exactly. But I feel like the guys are still playing for Todd Bowles. Now, the results obviously haven't been there. The Jets need to win one or both of these next 2 games against the Colts or the 49ers. They're the easiest remaining games on their schedule, and they need to win those games. Put some lipstick on the pig, as it is here in the final 5 games of the 3-8 season. Obviously, you finish 8-8, you're still probably not making the playoffs, which, it kind of gets back to why is Todd Bowles not looking toward the future by starting Bryce Petty?
Do you think that's going to happen this year?
If the Jets beat the Colts and beat the 49ers, I think there's a good chance you see Ryan Fitzpatrick play out the year. The problem is Ryan Fitzpatrick played so well against the Patriots that he didn't give the Jets an opportunity to put Bryce Petty in there in 2 winnable games against the Colts and 49ers, which would have been ideal for him.
We are beyond the point where Ryan Fitzpatrick's play should be the determining factor as to who the starting quarterback should be. At some point, the evaluation process should begin. Maybe they didn't need 6 games to see what Bryce Petty is, but they might need a couple of games. No matter what Ryan Fitzpatrick does in these next 2 games, maybe we see Petty for the final 3.
I think it's possible, but I also think there's a chance that they might know what he is already, and they see him every day in practice. And if you don't see Bryce Petty at all this year, I think that's an indictment on what the Jets think he is, or what they think they know he is, if that makes sense, because they see him every day in practice. And if they're not playing him this year, I think that might mean they're not really sold on him.
You can read his insights on the Star Ledger or NJ.com. Darryl Slater, thanks so much for coming in, man. Appreciate it.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
All right. Stick around. We're going to be right back.